So it's been almost a year now since I bought the GH4, and back then I really did think that this would be the perfect camera for me. But by using it almost every week now, I finally had to realize that it's not, and I have to try out some new cameras. So this could be the last video I'll ever shoot on the GH4. What's up everybody, welcome to another video. My name is Tom and today I want to give you guys a quick update on why I'm going to get rid of the GH4 in 2018 and why I'm going to try out the Sony A6500. So back then when I bought the GH4 earlier this year, I also thought about getting the Sony, but there are a few points why I finally decided on the GH4. And the main argument for me was the battery life. I mean, it's common knowledge that the Sony cameras have really bad battery life. I mean guys, it's 2017 and just 1 hour of filming, I mean, you can't be serious about that. We already have cars running off battery and you just got 1 hour of filming? I still don't really get it. But that's one of the points why I finally settled on the GH4 back then. Another big point for me was the overheating issue on the Sony cameras. Sony seemed to have fixed this. I still was a little bit skeptical about that and I don't want to risk it because in summer and on travel I'm filming a lot in hot locations and back then this was just a little bit too risky for me. Also, to be honest, the GH4 seemed to be a little bit more affordable, at least when it comes to the body only. I got my GH4 for around 600 euro and the Sony still cost around 1,100 to 1,300 euros. So I mean, we're speaking about 400 euro and you can already get a lens for this 400 euro. But obviously there already were a few downsides I was really aware of, but I thought I would get used to them. Like, there's no autofocus in slow motion. And back then I thought, okay, they always tell you that as a filmmaker you always have to use manual focus, so why would I ever need the autofocus of the camera? But now I call this total BS, because there are several occasions when you really would like to use autofocus as a filmmaker. When you do run and gun shooting, when you're travel vlogging, and even for some commercial shoots I would really have liked to use autofocus on my camera. But as most of you probably know, the autofocus on the GH4 is almost unusable. It is so goddamn slow. And this really still drives me nuts when I tend to use the autofocus, because it's unusable. I don't know why they couldn't fix this in 2017. I mean, goddammit, it's 2017. But besides the autofocus issue, there's another problem I have with the GH4 and I was aware of this, but I didn't think, at least back then, that this would be such a huge problem. And I'm speaking about the low light capabilities here. The GH4 is really bad in low light. Like, you can barely increase the ISO to 400 or even 800 and use the image. It all falls apart in color grading, you get so much noise, it's almost unusable for me. And when I thought about getting either the GH4 or the A7500, I thought, why would I ever shoot in low light? And then I had to shoot in low light. And even though I had an additional lighting on set, it was still really hard for me to get a proper image out of the GH4 in low light situations. Even with using a really fast lens with an 1.8 aperture, it's still hard to get rid of the noise. And also without a proper lock color profile, this is really a big issue of the GH4. And this for me really comes down to the small sensor of the GH4. I mean, the micro four thirds sensor is small. So to be honest, if you think about getting either the GH4 or the GH5 or another micro four thirds camera, you really have to get yourself a speed booster to get at least usable low light capabilities for your camera. And the speed boosters, at least the smart ones, are really expensive. I mean, they cost around 600 euro. And when I thought about getting one recently and getting the Sigma Art 18 to 35mm, I realized that if I switch to a Sony A7500, which has the in-body stabilization, which has 120 frames per second slow motion. I pay almost the same or even a little bit less money for the body of the Sony and the Sigma 18 to 35mm. Besides that, the Sony cameras have an amazing autofocus, and the autofocus also works in slow motion, which is a really huge argument for me, because when I had to shoot some product videos, I really would have loved to use some autofocus, because often I found it's hard to get some quick shots in slow motion while still operating the focus manually. And this is something that really bothers me on all these YouTube videos, where some filmmakers tell you that as a filmmaker you always have to use manual focus. Because for me now this is totally BS. There are of course several situations when you really want to use the focus manually. Like when you want to use the focus to tell a story in your images. Or a narrative film, manual focus is really important. There's no way around it. But like for product shots or for music videos, everything that has to be done a little bit faster and where you are a little bit in a hurry while filming, you will run into several situations where you want to use the autofocus, and there's nothing bad about this, because if you have a good autofocus, you can rely on this. And what's wrong with having a sharp image from an autofocus? I can see no point for that. And that is why I really want a camera that has a good and reliable autofocus, like the Sony cameras. Also, and this has really become an argument for me, the Sony cameras have a proper log picture profile pre-installed. And of course, you don't always want to use a log profile, but there are situations where a log profile really could help you. Like if you're shooting in a low light situation, because this helps you save a lot of details in the dark areas of your image. It's just that simple. And if like the GH4 had a pre-installed log picture profile and you wouldn't have to pay €100 to get a log profile, maybe this camera would have been better for me at least. But only with the Cinelike D, even though I really like this picture profile, but there's some kind of professional aspect lacking in the GH4, at least in my opinion, and this is why I just want to get rid of this camera and try out the Sony. And maybe after another year I realized that this is also not the right camera for me, and then maybe I will try out Canon or I don't know. But for now I think the Sony cameras in my situation are a really good deal. Even though of course still the battery life of the Sonys is really bad. But for now I'm thinking about getting like an external battery pack and rig this to the camera and then run the camera off the battery pack instead of Sony battery. Because with that you can get hours and hours of filming without having to worry about the battery. And to be able to run the camera off a USB battery pack is really a huge point for the Sony cameras. Plus the in-body stabilization, plus the bigger sensor, plus the 100 FPS slow motion, plus the autofocus. Like this is a really good package you get for like €1,100. So that's it guys, these are the reasons why I will switch cameras. And don't get me wrong, I don't think that the Sony cameras are perfect, but this is just because there is no perfect camera. Every camera has its downsides. But all the cameras out there have different features and different things that they are really good at. And it all comes down to you deciding what you really need and what downsides you could live with or at least get used to. Like for me, this is the battery life. I could get used to getting several batteries or getting an external battery pack. So most of the downsides of the Sony cameras I really could live with. And I realized there are downsides on the GH4 that I really cannot live with, like the autofocus or the low light capabilities, because this whole process about becoming a filmmaker is all about trying out different things, trying out different equipment, and there's no way around it. You have to try out things to get to the point where you're really comfortable with everything you're doing and everything you're using. So I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I hope you guys found all the videos helpful I uploaded this year. It's been a really amazing year. I love doing this YouTube stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed the channel. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you have any further questions regarding filmmaking or anything, just leave them down in the comments. I highly appreciate your feedback, and I really hope to see you guys again in the next year. This will be the last filmmaking video I upload this year. There will be a 2017 recap next week. But that's it for this year, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.